The Christmas Stranger. The snow fell softly over Riverside Park on Christmas Eve, each flake drifting down like a tiny frozen feather. The street lamps glowed golden through the white curtain of winter, and strings of colorful lights danced across the storefronts along Main Street. It was the kind of evening that belonged on a greeting card, picture perfect and magical. But for 7-year-old Tommy Henderson, the beauty of the night had faded hours ago. He sat on a cold park bench, his small body hunched forward, his arms wrapped tightly around a bundle of blankets. Inside those blankets, his baby sister Emma whimpered softly. She was only 3 months old, too young to understand why they were outside in the freezing cold, too young to know that their world had fallen apart. Tommy's fingers were numb. He could barely feel them anymore. His thin jacket, torn at one sleeve, did almost nothing against the bitter December wind. But he didn't think about himself. He only thought about Emma, about keeping her warm, about keeping her safe. "It's okay, Emma," he whispered, his breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. "Someone will help us. I promise." But the park was nearly empty now. Familias had gone home to their warm houses, to their Christmas trees and hot cocoa. The few people who passed by walked quickly, their heads down, eager to escape the cold. Tommy blinked back tears. He couldn't cry. Not now. Emma needed him to be strong. Across the park, a man in an expensive charcoal overcoat walked along the path. His name was Marcus Whitfield, and he was the CEO of Whitfield Industries, one of the largest companies in the state. He had just left his office downtown, where he'd been working late, going over contracts and quarterly reports. Christmas Eve meant nothing to him anymore. It was just another day, another set of numbers to review. Marcus had built his life on control and precision. After his wife died 5 years ago, he had thrown himself into his work, cutting away anything that reminded him of the pain. He didn't do holidays. He didn't do sentimentality. He had learned that caring too much only led to heartbreak. But as he walked through the park, taking a shortcut to his car, something made him stop. It was a sound, faint and fragile, a baby crying. Marcus turned his head and saw the boy on the bench. The child was small, too small to be out here alone. And the bundle in his arms, was that really a baby? For a moment, Marcus considered walking on. This wasn't his problem. There were social services for this kind of thing, shelters, people whose job it was to handle these situations. But something held him in place. Maybe it was the way the boy held the baby so carefully, with a tenderness that seemed far too mature for someone so young. Or maybe it was the quiet desperation in the child's eyes, visible even from across the path. Marcus found himself walking toward the bench. Tommy looked up as the tall man approached. He'd seen men in expensive suits before, men who walked past people like him without a second glance. But this man stopped. He stood there, studying Tommy and Emma with an expression that was hard to read. "Are you all right?" Marcus asked. His voice was deep and steady, the kind of voice used to giving commands in boardrooms. Tommy swallowed hard. "Sir," he said quietly, his voice shaking. "My baby sister is freezing." The words hit Marcus harder than he expected. He looked down at the bundle in the boy's arms and saw a tiny face, red from crying, delicate and vulnerable. "Where are your parents?" Marcus asked, crouching down to the boy's level. Tommy's eyes filled with tears, but he blinked them back. "Mama's gone," he whispered. "She got sick last month. And Papa, he couldn't take care of us anymore. He said he'd come back, but..." The boy's voice trailed off. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest, a sensation he hadn't felt in years. This child had been abandoned. Left here with a baby, in the freezing cold, on Christmas Eve. "How long have you been out here?" Marcus asked gently. "Since this afternoon," Tommy said. "I tried to keep Emma warm, but I don't think I'm doing a good job. She won't stop crying." Marcus looked at the baby again. She was wrapped in what appeared to be old blankets, insufficient against the dropping temperature. Her little lips were trembling, her cries weak and tired. Without thinking, Marcus stood and removed his overcoat. It was cashmere, custom-tailored, worth more than most people made in a month. But none of that mattered now. He wrapped the coat around both children, tucking it carefully around the baby. The coat was huge on them, swallowing them both, but it was warm and thick. "Come with me," Marcus said quietly. Tommy looked up at him with wide eyes. "Where?" "Somewhere warm," Marcus said. "Somewhere safe." The boy hesitated. They'd been taught not to trust strangers. But as another gust of icy wind cut through the park, and Emma let out a particularly pitiful cry, Tommy nodded. Marcus gently lifted the baby into his own arms, surprised by how light she was, how fragile. With his free hand, he helped Tommy to his feet. The boy's legs were stiff from sitting in the cold for so long, and he stumbled slightly. "I've got you," Marcus said softly. They walked together through the snowy park, an unlikely trio. Marcus' car was parked just beyond the gates, a sleek black sedan that gleamed under the streetlights. He opened the back door and helped Tommy inside, then carefully handed Emma back to him. The boy cradled his sister close, and for the first time that night, she began to quiet down, soothed by the warmth of the car's heated interior. Marcus slid into the driver's seat and started the engine. He didn't drive toward his office or toward the nearest police station. Instead, he drove toward his house, the large empty mansion on the hill that he'd been avoiding for years. "What's your name?" Marcus asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. "Tommy," the boy said quietly. "Tommy Henderson." "And this is Emma." "I'm Marcus," he replied. "You're safe now, Tommy. Both of you." The drive took 20 minutes. When they arrived at the house, Marcus carried Emma inside while Tommy followed, his eyes wide as he took in the grand foyer, the sweeping staircase, the crystal chandelier overhead. But Marcus didn't see any of that. He only saw how small and lost these children looked in his too large house. He took them to the guest room and turned up the heat. He found clean blankets and made sure Emma was warm and comfortable. He heated a bottle of milk, thankful that his housekeeper kept the kitchen stocked, and watched as Tommy fed his sister with practiced care. Later, after both children had eaten and Emma had fallen asleep in an improvised crib made from cushions, Marcus sat with Tommy on the edge of the bed. "What happens now?" Tommy asked quietly. Marcus took a deep breath. He'd been asking himself the same question. The logical answer was to call social services in the morning, to let professionals handle this. But as he looked at this brave little boy who had protected his sister against impossible odds, and at the sleeping baby who deserved so much more than the hand she'd been dealt, Marcus realized something. For the first time in 5 years, his house didn't feel empty. "What happens now," Marcus said slowly, "is that you and Emma stay here. With me. For as long as you need." Tommy's eyes filled with tears, but this time, he didn't hold them back. "Really?" "Really," Marcus said, and he meant it with everything he had. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the world in white. But inside, in that warm house on the hill, 3 people who had been lost had found something they didn't expect on Christmas Eve. They had found home.